My hot take is that if you're a great founder, like it's going to consume you, and that's a choice you make. At YC, they tell you, you're going to die and this company is going to be the next thing underneath your name on the tombstone. And Tushar and I took an oath to that. That is our reality. That's really how we operate in the world.
Dakotah Rice is the co-founder and CEO of Harper, an AI-native commercial insurance brokerage. In just their first 13 months, they've served more than 5,000 businesses across 35 states. Earlier this year, they announced $47 million raised in a combined seed and Series A financing, led by Emergence Capital, the largest publicly disclosed Series A ever raised by a Black founder. Disclosure, I'm a very proud investor in Harper in both the seed and Series A via my fund, Outset Capital. Dakotah, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Let's talk about what Harper Insurance is and share how it works.
Yeah, for sure. Harper, I like to think of it as just a basic commercial insurance brokerage. We have all of these businesses across America. We specialize a lot in more blue collar, like middle of the earth, like a tow truck, a daycare. They all need insurance, and it's sometimes pretty complicated for them to get the access to insurance, or like to go and navigate the maze that comes along with insurance. So Harper really plays in the part of the market where it's like complex SMB insurance, and we essentially act as their broker, helping them navigate the maze on the other side with carriers and get the best coverage. The way that we do it underneath the hood is using a bunch of AI to enable us to do that service at a lot more scale. I think particularly complex SMB has been something that folks have stayed away from because it's been so hard historically to do it. And so that's where AI comes into the picture. But to our customers and to carriers, we are a commercial insurance brokerage that really, instead of trying to lead with we're a digital brokerage or we're an insurtech company, I always tell carrier partners, like, please don't call me that. We're really just your local brokerage at a lot of scale.
Yeah. Yes, I notice on your website there aren't any references to AI. It's just brokerage. Mm-hmm. So that's what you tell customers. What you tell VCs is probably a little bit different. And what VCs are looking for is probably the opposite. Say AI as much as possible. And you guys are trendy. Like you are actually, you are building AI native. You're building an AI native service business, which every VC and their mom now wants to fund. YC even put out a request for startups in this space. But I think you were kind of early to it. And I'm pretty sure you didn't do it. You didn't build that because YC wanted startups like that. I think your story is actually not starting with an AI native brokerage, but rather trying the old way, trying to just sell software to other brokers. Tell me more about that story and how you kind of backed in to this type of company.
Yeah, great question. Basically, we went around to a bunch of insurance brokers, like got in my car, drove through Alabama, and would bring like boxes of pizza and say, hey, can we sit here and like do work with you all? Here's Claude. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me show you Clay. I can help you get outbounds. And it just was very clear that like these folks were not the workforce of people who found value in it or like were going to adopt it. It's a fundamentally different way to work when you're using tools that like are 90% accurate, but in the early parts, it could be 70%. Like you get frustrated. Like it's the same sort of adoption problem you have with these AI pilots in general. People get frustrated when it's not perfect. I think what happens is the past version was, hey, Claude can make everybody 10x more efficient. That doesn't change the fundamental margin structure of a business or change the way a business operates. Only when you have all of these systems able to communicate with each other, so to speak, I'm simplifying, with unified memory and context, can you really build really good AI agents on top of them. So as it became more obvious that people really didn't have a willingness to pay, that they weren't changing the way they were working, that it would take a much broader overhaul of all the systems, and procurement would have to look different because you'd have to be thinking about what could feed into your memories. And it just was clear this was not going to happen. And so from our perspective, we had no choice because it was clear that like somebody was ultimately going to figure out how to do this. It was just so repetitive, and there's complexities, but it's like not the most nuanced thing in the world, and somebody was going to figure out how to do it. And so we just said, why not us? And then we just started doing it.
I'm really curious. I had dinner with Tushar, and he said something really interesting, which was like that you guys were kind of outsiders to the insurance space and then had to like learn on the job, figure out this market, but that was probably a strength. Can you talk more about that, how you kind of came into this industry and figured it out over time?
Yeah. I just think that when people are from an industry, they just don't think big, usually. They think that what the status quo is kind of what has to be. Like there's a guy who works with us who leads a lot of our operations. And he said, when I owned my brokerage, I never thought about being able to convert 1,000 customers in a week, or like, the kind of numbers that we're doing are things that would take me a quarter or half a year, or my parents built this business for 10 years and never got to these numbers. I just think a lot more about how to build a scaled system. And I think about this as like an industrial engineering problem as much as it is like market making and building. I just think when you come to this industry and you actually think it's possible that you can have 1 million customers in a year, you're just going to fundamentally approach how you build it completely differently. For example, when we go to a place like a Progressive or a Liberty Mutual or something like that, some people are like, well, I know I have to operate for 3 years before I can get an appointment. I don't think like that. I'll just jump start to the person I know in this degree of connectivity and go tell them my story. And I'm just like, really, there's no shame. Like I just am bold. I'll go out and just ask the question. What are they going to tell me? No. I was close enough to it that I've seen insurance before. I have like some family members that have been brokers. I saw the small business owners who dealt with insurance, but far enough away that like I thought about it more as like an industrial engineering process, kind of how can I bring this new business model problem? And I had no limitations or fears about what was going to stop me, or I don't think about that.
Let's talk about your personal journey, because you do not have the typical path into this. You grew up low income in rural Alabama, raised by a single mother after losing your dad young. Went to Brown, worked as an investor at Goldman Sachs, Carlyle, and Cotu, as we talked about. You dropped out of Harvard Business School to start your first company, Pool It, with your co-founder, Tushar. Ultimately, you shut down that business, and then later started Harper, named after your mom's maiden name. What has that journey been like?
Non-linear, tumultuous. It's funny, like, people say those things and it sounds one way, and I appreciate that. Beneath all of those transitions are a lot of battle scars, a lot of like imposter syndrome, a lot of being very nervous that like I was making the wrong turn, or that it would not work out, or like not feeling like I was going as fast as the people who were around me, or that I was just so many things I think that kind of went along that journey. But every slug of it, the things I learned there practically, like at Cotu in these places, but also just like the underlying things I learned about psychology and people and organization building, all of that helped like sharpen me to be where I am today. So I'm grateful for it, but it was a very non-linear journey full of a lot of tumult, ups and downs, and a lot of self-doubt.
Thank you for sharing that. Not everyone shares that. I think most people feel that, but not everyone shares it.
Yeah, I think I owe it to the world to be honest. I think like I wish more people were honest with me about the challenges that they face, because I wouldn't have felt so alone on the journey of doing these things. So One of the biggest hallmarks I do, and I think one of the biggest things I emphasize at Harper, is like authenticity. I think if I'm just authentic, just show up as myself, if I'm being honest, if I'm being transparent, like I will attract like people and we will be able to build something great together. And so it's just a big thing I emphasize across the board.
Yeah. I remember when I first spoke to you, when you mentioned that you and Tushar had built this other company together that didn't work out, and then you were building Harper. That was like a huge green flag for me. People who go through a tough experience and then keep going together, it's pretty rare. And I think it's like the biggest indicator of strength in a relationship. It's like kind of easy to stay together when things have gone well, but when they haven't, and you were able to keep that bond and that respect for each other and appreciation for each other, that's really rare and special. Tell me a little bit about that relationship.
Yeah. Tushar is like the brother I never had. And I think, we, it's just hard to sit across from somebody and say, hey, I don't know that we can make payroll. Hey, I'm really nervous. I'm a person who keeps my nervousness to myself largely and just use it to fuel me. But like, it felt really comforting to finally be able to like share that. Because even with like, for example, people think about other core relationships where they share, like my mom, she's a single mom, like lower income single mom. Like I help take care of my mom, so I can't tell her everything. So it's like, he was the first person I could be really, really vulnerable with. And so much about company building is beyond the problem that you're solving. A lot of the things that you actually get to, you have to figure out that it works. Once it works and you're kind of like A, B, you're kind of going that scaling journey, there's just so much humanity that's a part of that day to day, and like trusting each other's decision making, being comfortable failing and taking risk with this person, and like being okay with all of that stuff. Like that's what it takes. And so we built this like very deep, like very very deep emotional bond with each other. And he's the person I trust the most. And so I really, 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 really value him, respect him. And I'm so happy that the world brought me to him, that fate, God, the universe brought me to him.
Yeah. You met at Goldman Sachs, is that right?
Mm-hmm. We did.
One of the best things that Goldman Sachs has ever done.
Thank you.
One question, you kind of alluded to this. You are very generous in what you share with other people, unusually generous, which is awesome. And I kind of, just reading your LinkedIn post, I was like, he's doing this intentionally. He is trying to help other people by sharing his experience on the way, not just after he's IPO'd and been successful, but like in real time. That's amazing. And it can be hard too. Like there's a reason people kind of like keep it to themselves. How do you think about the line between letting people in and also protecting yourself? Or kind of similarly between being driven by this mission and also making sure it doesn't consume you?
Yeah. My hot take is that if you're a great founder, like it's going to consume you, and that's a choice you make. It's sort of like if you're going to be an Olympian or something, if you're going to be a swimmer in the Olympics and you're going to win a gold medal, you're going to be in the pool every day. It's clockwork. This is the way it goes. Like you just commit yourself to that. I have committed myself in my life to Harper. That's what I do. At YC, they tell you, you're going to die and this company is going to be the next thing underneath your name on the tombstone. And Tashara and I took an oath to that. That is our reality. That's really how we operate in the world. In terms of sharing it and being out loud, I put everything out loud, but then I don't let anybody's responses to it impact me. Like sometimes I get like weird responses or something. I don't really involve myself in the comment section. I just know that if I keep showing up this way, my audience, meaning also people who will come work at Harper, people who are like entrepreneurs who are nervous about like their insurance or whatever, these people will trust me because I'm being honest with them. And so if I'm going to live my whole life and be consumed with this thing, just naming the thing constantly wherever, if it's in a meeting, if it's on LinkedIn, if it's wherever it is, it just makes me feel more free. Like it just makes me feel more open. Like I'm not hiding anything. There's nothing you can get. Like it's like I'm just being honest with you. And so yeah. I just think that authenticity is such a core part of like who I am, but also how I'm building this business. I was so nervous at Pull It because this wasn't working out. And I always felt like, oh my God, I just had to shed myself of that because I realized I couldn't be great by being that person, right? So now I just know like the way I can be the greatest person and the greatest person for Harper and build the greatest Harper and IPO the company in 4 years from now and all of these things, it's gonna come through that authenticity, that transparency, and that style of leadership will attract all the right people we need to do the things we need to do. And so it's just something I'm gonna do because I have to.
Let's say we're talking this time next year. What does Harper in 2027 look like?
2027 Harper, at that point, I hope we're serving millions of customers, at least 1 million customers. I think we're getting to like the hundreds of thousands of scale this year, million plus kind of scale at the end of next year. Harper will be in more places. Today we have a San Francisco headquarters and we're working at 5 a.m. because we have 8 a.m. customers on the East Coast and we just kind of work. I think you'll start to see a more complex operation in terms of geographical footprint, at least the New York office as well will also be there. And I think that you'll see a lot more direct carrier appointments. You'll see us start to experiment with other lines of business as well. Like you probably see us move into personal. A lot of our customers ask about personal insurance and that kind of thing. So we'll probably do a lot more of that stuff too. We'll also start being more acquisitive. I do think M&A is an important part of this strategy. And there's a lot of folks that are kind of graying out, so to speak, of insurance. And so thinking about the way that you also become a great buyer, I think will also be a really important part of our sort of 2027 story. So let's say 1 million customers, and mark my words, 1 million plus customers, more acquisitive and doing every line of insurance versus focusing only on commercial.
Okay. Look forward to seeing it next year.
Me too.
Dakotah, thank you so much. This was such an eye-opening conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. This is awesome. I appreciate you having me.